Welcome to the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast, bringing you bi-weekly discussions designed to help you grow your business and create the lifestyle you desire. Elevate your business with proven strategies from virtual CFOs, CPAs, and business advisors. We discuss real-world challenges solved with actionable steps that get you the results you need both in business and building the life you deserve.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for episode number 159 of the Cultivating Business Growth Podcast. Today, we are talking about what is cash flow management and why is it important? And to help us tackle that, we are bringing back everyone's favorite cash flow queen, Jamie Staley. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for that warm welcome. I can't decide if that's good or bad. I'm definitely
It's
known
great.
for my conservative cash flow thoughts, which does not always go over well with everyone.
Everyone should have a cash flow queen, but doesn't. So you're going to be the stand-in cash flow queen for all of our businesses right now.
Perfect. I will help. Don't spend the money.
We just need that clip to be able to play.
Right. Exactly.
On the ready.
Exactly. Love it.
So we've had a couple cash flow topics on the show in the past, and they always tend to be one of the most popular topics that we talk about. So we thought we'd bring it back and just kind of refresh our understanding of what is cash flow management and talk about why is it important, because I think that's everyone kind of like, oh yeah, it's important. We need it. But let's talk about like the nitty gritty of why we need it and what really matters to your business when it comes to cash flow management. So to start out, I want to back up and define clearly cash flow management for everybody so we're all starting on the same page.
So cash flow management is the process of tracking, analyzing, and optimizing the movement of cash in and cash out of your business. And I think a lot of people think they have a good handle on it because they know what's happening in general. So it's different because we're actually wanting you to put it down on paper, right? We want you to see it and look at it and think about it, because just similar to, I know how much we spend in eating out every month, and then you add it all up and you're like, whoa, that's not the number I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the same thing goes for your business expenses, right? Like, oh, I kind of know what's coming in and out. But if you don't actually like lay it out and look at it over time, you know, you just don't really know where you stand. Even if you are in a good cash flow position today, if you don't look at it, you don't know what trigger might, you know, put you in a cash flow negative situation. You know, and it's okay to have a few months that are not bringing in cash if you're investing or you're doing different things, but what if that's ongoing, right? It's good to know today, if we're laying out the whole year's cash flow, then in September, we might have a cash flow issue. And I need to see what can we do about that now? How do we make different decisions today so we're not spending as much? And so I find it's really valuable for business owners to look at that. I'm working through that currently with a new client, and I think it's been helpful. And it's hard because you don't know it. You're looking at trying to estimate your cash, and you can only estimate so much. Mm-hmm. Typically, the way I like to do it is be really, you can have a budget. We're not diving into budgeting, but budgeting is one thing. I like to kind of stretch those goals and things like that. But on the cash flow side, I prefer to be more conservative. Let's assume we're bringing in less cash. Let's assume we're spending more, right?
Yeah.
And so initially that makes you not spend as much and wait until the cash comes in. And that's a better mindset, I think. And I don't think that's where everybody lives, right? We have to spend, but we don't evaluate whether it's actually bringing in the revenue or the cash later. And so there are hard choices, right? You do want to sometimes spend a little bit more cash than you're bringing in. But you really want to be thinking through, hey, that's a one-time thing. It's going to happen in this month. The next month we should rebound from it because it's going to bring us more revenue, because we're going to bring more cash in the door. And so I think it's great to have it in your head and feel like, oh yeah, I have a good cash flow. I have a good handle on cash flow. And I look at the bank account and we have plenty of cash in there. But that doesn't tell you that in 4 months you might not have as much cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot of business owners who are just doing really well don't have to worry about it too much. But you also don't know when you might need to worry about it. You might not have a backup plan if there's an issue and it's just suddenly a issue that you just didn't know you had. So even if you have no cash flow issues today, I still advise putting together something high level so that you can play with it if things change. You know, you lose a client, you gain a client. Hey, what does that do to cash flow? And how does that impact us as a business? Because I know a lot of people live or really like to use like profit first, like how much. And I like the idea of that because again, you're saying, hey, we're not even going to look at this money. We can't spend this money. This is our profit. So what do we have left? So again, just trying to have that mindset of trying to spend less, bring in more until you get into a really good, comfortable position where you're like, I know cash flow is great. I think you have to manage cash flow a lot different if you have a tighter cash flow situation. You should be looking at it weekly, daily if needed. If cash flow is pretty good, you can probably look at it once a month or, twice a month. So it depends on your needs, but I would highly recommend looking at it regularly, at a minimum monthly.
Yeah. And in order to help you do this, we've actually put a free tool together for you as well. It's in a spreadsheet format, so you can take it, put it into Google Docs, export it as an Excel, however you like working. But like Jamie said, it's something that you need to look at it. You need to set it up and you need to be looking at it on a regular basis. So if you want to download that free tool, it's a template to get you started. You can find that at pjscpas.com/159 for this episode. So take a look, download that free tool and start using it so that
Yes, start tracking. I would do it on a monthly basis. If you have issues, you might have to get as granular as weekly, but I feel like it's easier to put it in a monthly format and just kind of be like, hey, here's our usual revenue in, here's all the typical expenses we have, and just start there. And then you may have forgotten one, right? I mean, it's a work in progress. You're going to use it, look at it, review it, and get it, honed in over time. But It's a really simple tool to use. So take a look at our cash flow template.
Awesome. All right. So we've talked about what it is. And now I want to shift to why do businesses struggle with managing cash flow?
Yes. So there's a lot of reasons cash flow is a problem, right? It's not just because we are, struggling with cash flow. We don't know how to manage it, correct? Right. We have things like accounts receivable. So we don't get cash in the door from our customers immediately. We get, maybe we have periodic payments. We have certain clients that just don't pay on time. So that becomes a challenge, right? We don't want to, make our clients mad by asking them to give us their money. Yet if they don't pay and we're providing a service, that's an issue, right? So you definitely need to evaluate, how do we have this AR process? How do we collect money? Do we have a set standard of asking for payment when people are late? There's usually a process. They get a reminder, they get one other reminder. Then we start to add a little bit more like weight to it. Like we may have to stop services. Just, I don't want that to happen. So please make this payment, all the way up to the point of you actually have to stop services. And I think we as business owners are trying to be very flexible with our clients and we're very understanding, but we also have to remember it's our money at the end of the day. And if you're providing a service and a client isn't paying, that's a problem. And so you shouldn't feel bad about asking for money that you've earned. You should definitely ask for it and have a process in place for here's kind of the escalation of that over the course of 30 days or 60 days or whatever works for your business. So, late payments from clients can be an issue. Unpredictable expenses, right? Some expenses are pay for a whole year right now. And great, you don't have to pay for it the rest of the time, but that could be a really big cash impact to you depending on what that dollar amount is. So, things like that can really change. Again, why laying it out helps. And you can see, hey, don't forget every March, we have this $5,000 expense. AI covers the year, but it is a much better deal if we, pay it upfront together. But how does that impact cash flow? Do we have cash enough? Is that
Right.
going to put us in a bad spot for the next 3 months because we really don't have that cash on hand? Also asking if you can split up payments. There's been times where they tell us it is an annual charge, but you can ask. Sometimes there is no fee to divide it into quarterly payments. Never hurts to ask is what I've learned.
Right?
So
The worst
sometimes
you're
those
gonna hear
big
is no.
expenses broken up is a little bit easier on your cash flow. So that causes issues for businesses. Poor financial planning too. If you're not planning ahead and looking at this stuff, that becomes a problem for you. Where is the cash? Or we're starting to see revenue go down, but we're making zero changes on the expense side, right? Like, okay, it's okay for a month or two, but if you're starting to notice a trend of cash coming down, but you're not doing anything different on the expense side, you're likely going to have an issue at some point. Those are hard decisions to make, but you have to take a good look at that, because if you continue on that road, you're just putting yourself in a deeper and deeper hole.
Yeah.
So being a business owner is challenging, but you have to be looking at these things so that you can make a decision, right? If you know and start to see a trend, hey, maybe we can cut back on a few expenses that, they're helpful. We like it. It, makes our lives great and easier, but we could save a couple $100 a month, and that will offset some of this, reduction and things like that. So just, again, as we talk about it, managing it is like half the battle. If you're looking at it, getting closer to it, monitoring your bank account, that helps trigger you making different decisions.
Right.
And that's important.
100%. Okay. So now that we've talked about some of the struggles that business owners can face and a little bit how to avoid them, but how can we use better cash flow management to save time and reduce stress?
Those are good questions. So definitely, again, I think we want to get the planning done, right? If you're starting to look at this and plan it and have a system in place, and your system could be the cash flow template that we have available. It could be you're monitoring it on an Excel document. You can do it in lots of different ways. There's no one way to manage it.
Mhm.
If you need to do it on a piece of hard paper every morning, you're like, I'm going to look at how much we have in the bank. I know these things are coming out. These are the things that can help you start to think about, how much money you have. So whatever the system is, you want to have a system. Like every, other day, I'm going to open my bank and spend 15 minutes looking at what's coming in, looking at what's going out, making sure that looks correct, looking at the balance. One of my recommendations, if you, can't afford or can't even do a more dramatic cash flow, management system, just look at your bank account every day. Start with 10 or 15 minutes in your bank account. I can assure you that if you see that number going down and down and down, you're going to start to make some different decisions, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a fancy process, but you want to have something that is pulling you in, making you look at cash flow, making you think about it. I know people prefer to just pull the wool over their eyes and hope it's going to go away, but that's just going to land you in a tough place. And that's not where we want you to be. Lean in, figure out what the problem is, resolve it, try to become, cash flow positive on an every month basis. And then you start to build cash, right? That's where we want to be, building the cash up and not depleting it, because it's tough to be there, because then you have to cut things. You're not focused on growth and serving your clients and things like that. So having some kind of system in place so you know where you stand. I also think making sure you have a line of credit is really important, like with your bank, if you can reach out and get a line of credit. That way, if you have some kind of short-term issue, you have a solution. You're not freaking out that you can't pay payroll next week and you have no idea where the money's coming from.
Right.
You don't have to pull from the line of credit. Usually there's an annual fee of like $50 or $100, but can you get a $10,000 line of credit? You get a $20,000 line of credit. That way too, if something important comes up and you're like, this would be a huge investment, we could, possibly get 10 new clients, but we have to put down a larger amount, right? So making, again, those decisions as far as what is the upside of the spend, right? It could be worth spending $5,000 if you think you're going to, bring in $20,000 of revenue over, a few months to pay for itself. So having the flexibility of that line of credit can really give you peace of mind so you don't have to stress. Now, you don't want to rely on it in terms of, oh, I'll just use that line of credit.
Yeah.
If you have a problem, putting a Band-Aid on it and just, I've seen clients do this. We're losing money. We're losing money. Oh, I got my family and friends to give me a loan for $50,000. Well, that's great. But if you don't fix the losing money problem, you're just kicking it down the road.
Right.
So
that loan's going to be real hard to repay.
One struggle I see, is that we're not actually fixing the problem. We're just like, oh, let's get some more cash and then we'll fix it, but no real plan to make a change, right? You still have to evaluate the problem. What is the problem? Do we have too many expenses? Not enough revenue? A lot of people say, well, I need these expenses to get the revenue. That's fine. But after 6 months of paying the expenses, if the revenue is not there, you don't need those expenses.
Right.
You need maybe different expenses, but it's not, adding to that growth. And so you really have to evaluate them. So that's really important. And I think it's a lot of mindset with cash flow, right? When you feel confident that you can make decisions. I see lots of business owners asking us, like, should I do this? Can I afford this? And I want them to start to feel like, I know what I can afford. I know what I can't afford. And I think a lot of people, again, avoid it and are like, here, you look at my financials. What can I afford?
Tell me. Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute. We can do that, but it's just better to get that business owner involved in it from the beginning and understanding the mindset. Then they feel comfortable making decisions or saying no, right? Business owners don't want to say no to their employees, but sometimes you have to say no. You can't get every, brand new tech item, the fanciest, luxury chair, things like that. Like, you just can't afford it until you're at a place where that cash flow is really not a problem and you're feeling comfortable and you're growing. And so it really gives you peace of mind and then confidence to make some of these decisions once you kind of have your cash flow pulled together, have some understanding about it.
Yeah. Well, and that plays into the anxiety and stress that we can feel about all of it too, because I think, like you said, some people like to pull the wool over their eyes and just ignore the fact that it's happening. But taking action can be such a huge, even if it doesn't solve the whole problem that day, right? But you went in, you looked at your bank account, maybe you were able to make a small change in your expenses, or, hey, we're going to, make this decision to start a new service offering, or whatever it is. Taking some kind of action to start tackling the issue is going to help your anxiety because you're owning it, right? You have some ownership over the problem now. It's not just like this thing that's happening to you.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And I will share a story that I most likely have shared in in a past cash flow episode, but I do feel like it's really impactful because of the changes that can be made that people are like, yeah, well, it's really not going to help, or, what does it matter? And this is a little bit relying on like budgeting and things like that. But when I got out of college, I had, I was an accounting major. I got a job downtown. I got an apartment downtown. And, in my mind, didn't have a lot of expenses, right? I had a car payment. I had an apartment, had some utilities. I wasn't a big spender, quote unquote. And so, I lived down there for a year and I look at my savings account and I'm like, my savings account didn't go up at all. Like, how could that be? Like, I should be saving lots of money in my mind.
Right.
I'm like, how could that be? Let me look at it. And I just took some time and looked at, the last several months and realized I was spending more than I made in lots of months. And I didn't even realize it, right? Like, I just didn't. And at the time, this like dates me a lot, is I would go to the ATM and get cash. So I would go grab $100 anytime I ran out of money. I didn't think about it. It didn't matter if it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If I had zero, no cash left, I go grab another $100. After I sat down and looked at what the budget is, I was like, I can grab $100 every week. Like, that's reasonable. And I'm probably not going to only grab $100 every week of my entire life, but that's what makes sense. That works, where I'm actually now saving some money and can still spend. And so now I have a like benchmark to compare to, right? Like, I can say, okay, great, I used $100 this week. That's great. This week it's Thursday and I have no cash. Now I'm going to get more cash. But now I know right? Like I know I'm overspending essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to do it? Yes, because I need money to get at the time on the L or, go out for the weekend and things like that. Like I need money. I'm going to take it. But now I'm making different decisions. Now I know I've pulled a little bit more than I should. And next week, I'm going to need to adjust that. Next week, I'm not going to spend as much, or I'm not going to go to the Gap that's on Michigan Avenue because I have to stay out of that store. Otherwise, every time I go in there, I would spend some money.
Right.
But like you have that, oh, shoot, this isn't a great way to be doing,
A gut check.
spending my money this week. We're going to do it. But next week I need to find a way to save like $50 or $100, $50 or $25. Like I need to spend a little less next week. So I think it's really helpful to have whatever works for you, but some kind of cash management plan, right? I didn't do anything over the long term. I sat down, I looked at numbers, and then I had a gauge of like, okay,
Right.
I can spend this amount. And you can do the same thing for your business. Maybe look at the lowest month of revenue you've gotten and say, that's going to be how much I spend in expenses every month. That way, during the year, if that's my lowest month, I know I'm still going to be break even, right? And then if I make more money, I should be profitable, right? So just evaluating where you stand. Like I said, you don't have to do this every day, every week, every month, although I recommend it. It's probably the best way to do it. Just getting a handle on it for a few hours and saying, okay, we're not spending more than X dollars in a month. How do we make that happen? That can give you, a better, outlook for your cash flow.
Yeah. Great. All right. So that's all a DIY version of managing things. And
Yeah.
I think the other side of that I don't know that we have talked about a ton on this podcast, but I want to talk about what are the benefits of outsourcing cash flow management. And I'm going to add to two experts, not just to anybody, to somebody who knows
Right.
what they're doing. But what are some of the benefits of putting that on somebody else's plate instead of expecting yourself to just manage it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a great question. And I think everybody has, what they're really good at, right? And typically business owners, they're good at a lot of things. And typically it's what they're in business doing and probably not also accounting, So it's really helpful for you to have a partner who has expertise in this area that can kind of save you the time and pain of like doing it yourself. There's a lot of great things you can do yourself and save a lot of money. And when you're a really small business owner, that may be how you do it. But as you grow and scale, having a partner who can help do that for you so you don't have to spend the time gathering all the information, figuring out, the best cash flow for you going forward, can help put it together for you so you're not the one who's like, great, I'm going to sit down and this is going to take me 5 hours because I'm not good at this. I don't know where to begin. So having that partner who already has the expertise, who's done it, same thing about doing things around your house. My husband loves to do things himself, but it takes him way more time, way more mistakes, and he's not as efficient, right? He's not going to get something done in a couple hours. Every once in a while, I'm like, why don't we just hire the person? And he's a very do-it-yourselfer around the house, but every once in a while, he'll take me up on it and be like, yeah, that's probably a better idea.
That's a good idea.
Like, yeah.
Well, I think the other thing too is like realizing that you don't even know what tools are available. Like this is me with my husband, right? Like I'll try to do something at home because I'm like, I just get tired of like waiting for it to happen, right? So I'll just start a project, which he loves. But then he'll come home and be like, why didn't you use the such and such? And I'm like, the what? And it's like a tool that I don't even know exists because I'm not that type of person, right? But he is. And he goes and gets this tool that like did what I was trying to do for the past 2 hours in like 5 minutes. And I'm all, oh, okay. Like those are the types of things that you don't even know is a possibility. Yeah. You're just sitting there doing it the hard way because that's, you'll eventually get it done.
Yep.
But there's this amazing tool out there that this person that's an expert knows about that can come in and go, okay, they're done. Yeah. And you're just sitting there, okay, well, now I'm not going to pull my hair out anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like there is that benefit, right? You have somebody who knows what they're doing. They've done it before. Mm-hmm. You can ask them a lot of questions. You can pick their brain. You can offload it to them completely and be like, you just walk me through it. I'll tell you like what I know from the business owner perspective. And that's what I've been doing with one of our clients now. I'm like, here's what I'm looking at from last year. What do you think? Do we want to add revenue? Do we not want to add revenue? It was like, we had a budget of 300,000 for the year. And I was like, let's pretend we're really going to get 200 or 215. And okay, now what does it look like? So we walked through that and talked through it to figure out where they're going to land. What decisions can you now make? The thing about cash flow is that, you got to consider loan payments, credit card payments. Any cash coming out needs to be considered, which isn't necessarily considered when you're doing your budget, right? Your budget is more profit, loss, expenses that are booked, but it doesn't necessarily take into effect all cash out the door. And so that's why cash flow is really important. And so I think an expert can help guide you through doing that, do it for you, and then pull you in to say, all right, let's talk through this. Let's meet weekly and talk through how things are going. Is this going as we expected? If not, let's make changes. So I think there's a lot of value to that because you as a business owner have a lot of things to do. And so if you can take one thing and be like, we're doing it, I have to pay for it, but now I know I'm getting to that peace of mind to know, hey, what does the next 6 months to a year look like? What changes do I have to make? Because I do get a lot of questions. Can I afford this? Can I do this? And I'm always like, there's so many questions that I think about. I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, what is the cash balance in your bank? What loan payments? You need to lay it all out on a piece of paper. And like I said, it's not going to be perfect the first time, but you start to get that really honed in over time. And then you're feeling really comfortable. Now I know, what expenses are coming in and we can look forward and we can know that we're going to have cash at the end of the day or the month to continue moving forward. So I think that's really helpful for that partnership, that expertise level, like you said, tools that can be used to help make it simpler. And it helps business owners avoid making costly mistakes that, hey, I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm not going to pay anybody. But now in 3 months, they're facing, a big cash flow problem. It's now all on their plate. They have to figure it out. They're trying to, do a lot of things. So avoiding that stress or huge problem, that expert can help you with.
Perfect. Well, as we wrap up this episode about, what is cash flow management? Why is it important? I think we've touched on a lot of really great things, but do you have anything that you want to leave our listeners with as we wrap?
Do something today. Do something with your cash flow. Whether it's something small, like check your bank balance, whether it's lay out the last 6 months of cash ins and outs and just take a look at it. And if, you're small enough and you can do it yourself, do that. If you're overwhelmed at the thought of it, then reach out to us. We'd be happy to sit down and walk you through how we can do a cash flow system with you and how, what it can do for you and how it can make your life a little less stressful. We'd be happy to help.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate all of your knowledge sharing on cash flow. Hopefully this was helpful to you all. Don't forget to grab your free template at pjscpas.com/159. Keep that momentum going, and we will see you next time.